I get people coming in the office, they're 75, 80 years old. And when I ask them if you could go back in time and do things differently, what would you do? The answer 9 times out of 10 is I would have spent more money, I would have done more things.
The thing that I see is like, I was afraid to spend. Well, the reason being is you didn't have a plan that said, hey, here's your income stream for the next 10 to 15 years to do those things. Money is just a tool to provide that. It's not, I should be hoarding this in some account to get an extra comma. They're broke in their mindset, but in their bank account, they're perfectly fine and they have more than enough. Welcome back to another episode of Do Business, Do Life. Have my friend Dylan Bond here with us today. Welcome to the show, Dylan.
Thank you, Brad.
Well, to say I've been looking forward to this one, my friend, is an understatement. There's so many places we can go. We've known each other for, I think, over a decade now. And I really, if I go back down memory lane, I think the friendship was truly cemented on Broadway in Nashville. And we'll get to that a little later. We're going to leave a little teaser. We'll get to that later. That's more the Do Life side. But one of the things that I just absolutely love about you, man, is you just always been like that guy that shows up, never takes himself too seriously, comfortable in your own skin, just like a real authentic human. And those are the type of guys I love to surround myself with. And you've always been that. And one of the things as we were kind of prepping for this conversation, you've been through some battles here lately.
Oh, yeah.
And I think one of the things, if you're a financial advisor that's been doing this for any amount of time, if you're an entrepreneur that's been being an entrepreneur for any amount of time, you've definitely dealt with the roller coaster. But I mean, you recently just survived a scare with cancer. And I want to go into that because I think sometimes in this business life, we get so consumed, we kind of sometimes lose perspective of the bigger picture, which is what's this whole life for? Like, what are we on this planet for while we're here?
Yeah.
And you just had one of those life experiences that I'm sure put some things in perspective for you. So if you don't mind sharing, like, tell us kind of what went down. This was kind of into 2024, 2025. And I think there's also some really serious business lessons that come out of your story.
Yeah, for sure. So it was about mid-September of 24. I woke up one morning and I had my neck was swollen.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed it when I went to shave. And fortunately for me, I was going to the dentist that morning and he's one of my best friends. So I brought it up to him and he said that you might want to go see an ear, nose, and throat doctor, just to get it looked at. You never know. And so I did. And basically, I called the ear, nose, and throat doctor. They told me their first appointment was February of 25. So we're mid-September 24.
Jeez.
And so that was a little bit of a shock, but fortunately I knew the guy through golf and I had his cell phone. So I texted him and I said, hey, my neck's swollen and my buddy, Aaron, told me that he recommended I go see you. And, he texted me back, can you be here tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.? So I was, of course, there. And so I went in, he put the scope up my nose, went down my throat, looked at the neck. And he told me that it didn't look bad down there. He said, normally if there's cancer in there, it would usually be discolored and, whatever. So he did say my right tonsil was swollen and red. And, so he did a needle biopsy of the swelling on the side of my neck. And that came back negative. And he then recommended also that I get my tonsils removed. So I got my tonsils removed, which I would say was probably the most painful thing I've ever gone through in my life. And I was hit by a car on a motorcycle and broke my femur in 3 places.
Wow.
So it was brutal pain. But when they took the tonsils out, they biopsied the tonsil and found a tumor in it.
Jeez.
But it was the type of cancer they told me was that if you're going to have it, that's the one you want because it doesn't tend to spread as much and it doesn't grow very fast. So, we basically determined, okay, so now I got to go see an oncologist. So I went to the local oncologist here in the area and they wanted to put me on the standard protocol, 7 weeks of chemo, 7 weeks of radiation. And I knew 5 other people in the area that have gone through this type of cancer before and did that treatment, and it absolutely destroyed them. So I
Mm.
didn't really want to go for the chemo. So I went to Boston and got a second opinion at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. And they had an incredibly different approach. They wanted me to consider surgery, and to remove, go back in, look and see if there was any other cells there, and then also take some lymph nodes out of the side of my neck. And so, I had to wrestle with the insurance company a little bit to get me approved to do that. So I ended up going to Dana-Farber. They did what is called radical robot-assisted tonsil dissection. Even though my tonsils were gone, they went back in there with a robot and took more flesh out and were real-time biopsying it during the surgery. Fortunately, the first go-around, it came back negative, or they would have had to keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and it could have been a problem. So I was fortunate there. And then they took 42 lymph nodes out of the side of my neck.
Mm.
And there was cancer in one of the lymph nodes, but the surgeon was confident that she had taken everything out and that it was a successful surgery, and that she said, arguably, you don't need radiation, but we would recommend that you do it, just to be on the safe side. But fortunately, with this clinical trial they put me on with the surgery, there was also what was considered low dose radiation. So rather than going 7 weeks or 35 treatments, I went basically 5 weeks with 23 treatments.
Mm.
And thank God for that, because by the last treatment, it was literally really starting to get uncomfortable. So I did a follow-up about 3 months later, and they did all the scans. They said there were no signs of reoccurrence, and they told me that going forward, um, that I had less than 10% chance of reoccurrence. So
Mm.
I think at this point, it's behind me. I'm still dealing with a lot of neck pain, a lot of shoulder pain, a lot of throat soreness still, but they told me it could take up to a year or more to get through that.
Mm. Well, first off, thanks for sharing that. And
Yeah.
I know as just like a friend, when you hear another friend going through that, like I remember when I heard the news, because I think you sent us kind of like, you sent a few of us at Triad a little group text and kind of what you were going through. And like immediately, like your heart goes out to somebody. You're like, oh, like your just heart sinks when you hear that. And I'm just grateful that you caught it early enough. You obviously went through the treatment that sucked. You don't wish that on anybody, but you handled it to where you're out the other side. And I'm just glad we're here having a conversation, my man.
Yeah, I as
And,
well.
and I think the other thing in life, sometimes these adversity things, nobody chooses them. It's
Yeah.
not like, hey, sign me up for that. I want to, get a tougher mindset. But I think sometimes on the other side of them, they're perspective shifters.
Yep.
And the other thing is you've worked with retirees for a lot of years. So unfortunately, as an advisor, you've seen a lot of your clients go through probably
I've seen
battles
it
with
all.
cancer. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So how has that changed your perspective, maybe your empathy for your clients that are dealing with some of the health struggles that you see just by being in the chair that you're in?
Well, I definitely have more of a relatable experience to share and to support them. But I'll say I've always looked at our clients as part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not really super high volume over here, and we have incredible relationships with all of our clients. So one of the hardest parts of the job for me is when clients fall off ladders cleaning gutters and die,
Mm.
or end up with fighting cancer or whatever it is. It happens all the time. I've been doing it now for 30 years, and it's just it really it's a humbling humbling experience. I think as far as being diagnosed, I think everybody around me was more shocked than I was. You
Mm,
know, I treated it like any other challenge in life. I just, okay, let's go. And so basically, I didn't think about, I never really thought about, I'm going to die. I never, had any fear. I just woke up every single day and just went through the motions. It was brutally painful, but thank God for pain medicine, because once I, was put on that, it was tolerable.
yeah.
But I never really, you know, got into a deep depression over it. I never thought the worst was going to happen. I just literally, I believe God is in control of everything.
Hmm.
And so I just did what I do, and I got up every day and I just marched through it. And,
Mm,
knowing that it's going to pass at some point, it will be over like everything else. And, it all worked out.
yeah. The other thing I think about is I see this happen a lot. Um, I've been, close to 20 years now working with advisors like you. So I inherit a lot of these client stories through guys like yourself that are out there
Yeah.
um, working hand in hand with clients. And one of the things I see is this, and you've never lived your life this way, which is one of the reasons I love you. But I oftentimes see this deferring of spending money, deferring of creating experiences with those you love for someday. Oh, we're saving, so someday we can take that trip. So someday we can do this. And then sometimes life has other plans and there isn't a someday, because
Absolutely.
tomorrow is never guaranteed. So has that made you more passionate, like in meetings where you're like, hey, when you hear a husband saying, well, honey, we can't take the trip because instead of 1 million, we need 1.5 or 2 million in the account before we do that. Do you feel like you're stepping into those conversations differently now due to your
Well,
experience and like kind of encouraging them, like, let's not wait for someday?
yeah. It's interesting because basically our through line here is, you deserve to live the rest of your life with no regrets, looking back, wishing you had done things differently. So, all the seminars we do, all the first appointments and second appointments, I'm constantly telling people that, I always use the story of when I've been doing these seminars for literally 20 years now. And quite often I get people coming in the office, they're 75, 80 years old. They have tons of money. And when I ask them, if you could go back in time and do things differently, what would you do?
Mm,
And the answer 9 times out of 10 is, I would have spent more money. I would have done more things. And then and in a seminar environment, I'll explain to them, to the people after that, I tell that story, that, the reason they didn't spend money is because they were afraid they were going to need it in the future. They were afraid to run out of money. They didn't know, where they were or where they were going. And that is the reason why you need a financial plan that you can continue to update year over year, so that you'll be able to identify any potential problems 5 to 10 years out. And then you can make adjustments if there is a problem coming, to make sure you're not going to end up drifting down towards a poor outcome or a crisis outcome.
yeah. There's a quote out of Alice in Wonderland. It's the Cheshire Cat, I believe. And he asked Alice where she's going. She's like, I don't know. And he's like, well, then any path will do. So I mean, it's funny because it's like a little pithy quote from a book, but the truth is in life, if you're not sure where you're going or what the objective is, then it's tough to get you there. There's no plan, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
the thing that I see, and I've heard this over many years, it's like I was afraid to spend, or I had this anxiety when the market corrected and I was up all night. Well, the reason being is you didn't have a plan that said, hey, here's your income stream for the next 10 to 15 years to do those things, the bucket list
Yeah,
trips, the flights to go see grandkids, all the stuff that, typically the people want experiences with people they love. That's Money's
Absolutely.
just a tool. Money's just a tool to provide that. It's not, I should be hoarding this in some account to get an extra comma.
Yeah.
Um, how often do you see that where they show up to your office? It's almost like the broke millionaire. Like it's their mindset, they're broke in their mindset, but in their bank account, they're perfectly fine and they have more than enough to do those things. Is that a very common problem you see?
Very common. Very common. You know,
How do you
everybody,
fix
ev-
that? How, like, what sort of conversations do you have to like be like, dude, spend some money?
well, you know, if it's a first appointment and we start to identify, you know, I mean, it happens all the time, you know, most often, I think.
Mm,
And in a first appointment, you know, I'll acknowledge that, and I'll explain to them that, you know, once we get through collecting your data, we get it all organized, we get it all inputted in our systems, and we can start to run reports for you.
hmm
We're going to be able to identify, you know, where you are and what you're capable of doing. And then when we have this second appointment, and we work through the reports and the conversation, by the end of the second appointment, it's like I see it all the time. It's incredible. People literally are like, you could see the weight of the world lifted off their shoulders.
mm,
You can see, you know, like a sparkle in their eye. And I've had people, you know, like almost in tears saying, "Oh my God, I never realized, you know, that I was in a good place."
mm,
And for me, that is probably the most rewarding part of the business. Granted, you know, you work hard, you make good money, you have freedom to do what you want when you want it. But the ultimate reward for me is when I truly get people in that care about, you know, where they are and they're concerned, and we can flip that around within a couple of meetings and give them, you know, an absolute sense of confidence and empowerment, you know, to live the life the way they want to live it. And I think that is awesome to do. And I think that's what really keeps me going in this business. It's a tough business. Everybody knows that, but when you have those experiences and people literally are so grateful that they you know, that they met us, that's just better than getting paid.
yeah. Well, you know, we started off the conversation with a really big health scare for you.
Yep.
And obviously, thank God for incredible doctors. But next down the tier, I think the power of a financial advisor to have two conversations, you know, like maybe you meet them at a public educational event, then they come in for a one-on-one where you're kind of identifying the gaps or what's creating the anxiety for them around retirement. But then in a second visit where you can kind of show them, hey, good news. We kind of crunched a couple numbers. Looks like you're going to be just fine. And in fact, you might even be able to spend more. Like
Yeah.
back to the weight coming off the shoulders or the twinkle in the eye you mentioned. What noble, awesome work. Like when you really step back, because I think a lot of really successful advisors, it's like every business can be a grind.
Yeah.
Every business you can look at the calendar like, I'm slammed, not enough of me to go around. But when you really step back at our what you do on the daily, what noble, powerful work you get to do. Like they're inviting you into their lives. That's like a multi-generational decision
Yeah.
oftentimes.
For sure.
Um, so I want to ask you this question. I asked a room full of Triad members the other day, and I want to get your answer. So let's say 100 retirees come in for a first, just your local area right there in the Boston area. 100 retirees come in. How many of those retirees, when they show up, have a written income plan that they know how much they can spend in retirement?
You know, a very small percentage.
Like if you had to put a number, like out of 100, is it one
Out of a
person? Is it
hundred, I,
five? Is it
I would
10?
say five tops.
Five, which would be
Yeah, and
5%.
they're normally, you know, analytical engineers that love to create spreadsheets.
They geek out on it and have
Yeah,
created it
big time.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about it is oftentimes they're not running their spreadsheets properly.
Mhm.
They're not really considering, volatility. They're not considering inflation. They're just running, baseline spreadsheets that show them that they'll be okay if they earn 5% and take,
Yeah.
$25,000 a year out or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Well, I just go back to it's interesting. I ask a room full. I got zeros. I got ones. I got yours actually was the highest I've heard, which is
Yeah, and
5%,
honestly, I think I'm
which
being
is still
generous.
super. Yeah, which is still super low. Like 5 out of
Yeah.
100 is a very low percentage.
Yeah.
And back to what we were just talking about, which is millionaires or multimillionaires that are living broke. That's like the saddest story. Back to lack of regrets in retirement. And what I see oftentimes, our industry is built on accumulation, right? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I'll manage your assets. Let's get the nest egg up to 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, whatever the magical number is. And it's kind of the analogy of we're going to climb Mount Everest and we've reached the summit. We've hit our goal when we get this magical number that's in our heads oftentimes of like 1 million or 5 million or whatever they've just kind of predetermined. That's a big,
Right.
nice round number.
Yeah.
But that actually doesn't not create anxiety because now they're at the top. Now they retire. Now it goes from a done for you model, which is the 401k or the IRA, to a do it yourself model, but they haven't changed the rules, right? They're literally now
Yep.
they need that money. They need the income stream because unfortunately the old job doesn't keep paying you when you leave it.
Correct.
And so how do you rewire a retiree that's the whole life back to that spreadsheet? Hey, if I make 5%, 6%, 8%, I'll get to this magical number, but they've only done half the journey. Now the distribution is I've got to make it through retirement, make sure my
Right.
money lasts as long as I do. So what are the conversations or how do you flip that perspective when they've almost been indoctrinated for their whole life that this is the game I'm playing?
Yeah, you basically just have that conversation about the accumulation phase of life and the distribution phase of life. You have the conversation about systematic withdrawals from a volatile asset can really be a problem. Obviously, if you're in the S&P 500 drawing, $2,000 or $3,000 a month out and it drops 50%, now you're going to sell twice as many shares to get your 2,000 or 3,000 a month, and then you won't have as many shares to catch the rebound. So it really boils back down to safety, income, and growth. And people understand that. I think there are, again, I think a lower percentage of people that aren't in agreement with the fact that they need to make changes and create less volatility, but still maintain the potential for a reasonable rate of return. So you just have those standard conversations that we all know and we've been using for 20 years.
Yeah. Do you think like just, it's almost like, here's an idea that I never considered before. Is that what you think oftentimes in that second? It's like, oh, there is a way to actually get what I want, which is an income I can depend on while also having an investment strategy or a growth strategy that complements it where I don't have to like, oh, throw all my money in a 3% CD or in a MIGA that I'm locked in for the rest of my life. Or like, do you think what you see is like almost like a light bulb goes off? Like, oh, this is refreshing. Where's this been my whole life? Is that the typical response?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when we do second appointments and we're, pointing out the gaps in their plan, and we go through the risk profile of their current portfolio, and we always we use hidden levers or Orion risk management now.
Yeah.
And when you do a risk profile on their portfolio, it'll show different stress tests like the financial crisis or the COVID crisis or all of those different crises. And it also shows what is a max drawdown number for the portfolio. So we had somebody in this week, and we identified that their max drawdown threshold, their risk tolerance, was 25%. And then when we went through the risk profile of their current portfolio, it was 42%. So what we do is, we can illustrate using e-money. Normally what we'll do is we'll put in a lever for that appointment. Whatever the max drawdown is on their current portfolio, we'll put in a lever that, says market correction of 42%. And then when you show them how everything looks good right now, based on the assumptions we're using, conservative assumptions, but the way you're currently positioned, if you were to hit that max drawdown that we talked about, click the button and boom, all the freaking numbers just crater. And, they're seeing it. Just if you have a market correction of 42% in that portfolio this year, you're going to have a much more stressful retirement.
Yeah.
So that I think is impactful.
It's almost like money. It's almost like money therapy. Really, you think about it. It's like
it is. It's psychology. The whole business is not crunching numbers. It's psychology. I mean, with the software systems that are out there today, just from 10 years ago, it's just amazing what we can do, and it really helps. When we bring a client on, it's usually the whole ball of wax. They bring everything over. And if we didn't have the ability to walk them through different scenarios and show them their lifetime tax bill and show them, what their beneficiaries will pay at life expectancy, if you die at life expectancy, what the cost of taxes and expenses will be to your beneficiaries, all of those things. If you have common sense and you care about yourself and your money, it sells itself, really.
Yeah. Well, just think about that. It's like, hey, I've identified why you have anxiety. Oh, okay. Let's take a look. You say you're comfortable with up to 25%. Well, unfortunately, your portfolio disagrees. Click. I've now identified why you have anxiety. So it's like, if you're logical and if you want to actually fix the problem and not have a bunch of anxiety your whole retirement where you have to run downstairs and click on, the ticker at the bottom and see where you're at every morning, it's like, it just makes sense to align your plan with what is your actual, how comfortable are you with the ups and downs of the roller coaster? It's funny. It's like people that don't like roller coasters at theme parks. Hey, here's an idea. Don't ride the roller coaster. And then there's people that don't like roller coasters in retirement, but they're still riding the roller coaster. It just logically doesn't make sense. So I want to go back to one thing because there's another lesson that came out of your whole health journey, the battle with cancer. And we were kind of talking about it before we hit record. So when I met you, gosh, what was that? When we were roaming around Broadway, that was over 10 years ago.
A long time ago. Oh yeah. Yeah.
We were much younger.
Much younger.
We're much more mature now. We've grown up a lot.
I don't know about that, but
so as I go back when I met you the first time, it was pretty much the Dylan show, right? It was basically Bond Financial was Dylan Bond. Like that's what Bond Financial, with a very small team, obviously, to help with maybe some paperwork, things like that.
Yep.
And I know one of the things that I remember when you joined Triad, you said, hey, I kind of like want to build a business that's not just all riding on my shoulders, where we can kind of build a team that serves my clients, and also like we can have a bigger impact on the retirees in our market. Obviously, it's great if you can hire more people, create career tracks for them as an employer. There's lots of benefits to that. And as I look back, here's a quick snapshot of kind of your growth since you've joined Triad. So 2022, 18 million of total assets gathered. 2023, 31 million, of total assets gathered. 2024, which for context was about 3/4 of a year, because the fourth quarter, you really started your battle with cancer and your treatment. So 2024 still brought in 25 million of total assets, and that was working 3/4 of a year. 2025, you were still finishing your treatment first quarter of 2025. So really just started second quarter, and you're already pacing for 10 mil. And we were chatting and I said, hey, Dylan, if your battle with cancer would have happened when I first met you, the Dylan and the business then, would you have been able to produce any business or drive any revenue for the fourth quarter and the first quarter? And what was your answer to me?
Yeah, there would not have been the ability to produce more business. You know,
Yeah.
Wanda's been with me for a long time, and she's got incredible relationships with clients, so she could have handled customer service.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, our clients were super empathetic for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I literally have 100+ cards that are fully written out on both pages, writing and explaining to me, you know, how much they care about me and how much they appreciate me. And, you know, so it's amazing because there's so many good things that came out of that whole ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
And how often you get 100 of your clients writing you, you know, a 2-page letter about how much you mean to them.
Yeah.
And so that was a good thing. But no, I would not have, I would have not, you know, produced. There would have been zero growth.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm going to paint a little bit of a picture just for context, because I think from my experience, most advisors, most independent guys that I talk with and gals, they're like, man, all of them have this desire to not that being a financial advisor is a bad thing, but I think specifically when you go into the independent realm where you're technically an entrepreneur that happens to work in finance, I think every business owner is like, yeah, it'd be cool to build a business bigger than just me, have a great team around me, be able to serve the clients at a higher level, maybe be able to go on vacation every once in a while. That's kind of nice, right?
Yep.
And so you started down that track. And so you had hired Drew, who was really sitting in a service advisor chair, hired a
Yep.
paraplanner.
Yep.
And so you'd kind of already started to build out the team aspect
Yep.
of the financial advising team. And it wasn't just Dylan now. It was like, hey, we've got, it's a we, not an I thing.
Correct.
And so thank God you had, because now at least the foundation of your business was somewhat prepared to deal with your
Yeah.
absence, and also your clients were taken care of, right? Like
Right.
had you been the only guy servicing them, building plans, your clients would have been abandoned for like a 6-month period, right? They wouldn't have had anybody to like continue to monitor the plans. And what's wild is, I mean, 31 million in 2023, where you had a full year, 25 million of total assets where you only worked 3/4 of the year. You actually, from a pro rata standpoint, produced more in a year where you had cancer than in a year when you did not, because of the
Right.
team, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
so give me some of the tips, like if you were talking to yourself, giving yourself advice back in the day, or maybe another advisor out there that's kind of struggling to build a team around them, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. I mean, first thing I'll say is that I've been wanting to expand the team and free up my time for a long time, probably, you know, close to 10 years. I've conveyed that to other you know, firms that I've worked with. And we've talked about it quite often, but there was no execution ever. And when I came on with Triad, um, you know, working with Ryan and the coaching team, Nick, and those guys, Jordan, they were involved to a point where, you know, I was taking action, right? And you know, it's not easy when you're hiring people,
Yeah.
you know, and getting them trained up and all that. It's not easy, but it's something I had wanted to do for a long time. Yeah, I knew I wasn't getting any younger, but you guys actually made it happen. And so if I were to give myself or anybody advice out there, you know, the sooner you do it, and go through the, you know, I think Ryan and Nick call it, uh, storming, norming, and performing. So, if you go through the storming phase, it will always be there. But it's just like Simon Bowen says, as we sit here today, the simple passage of time will get us to the future.
Mhm.
And the sooner that you get that working, uh, the sooner you're going to free yourself up, the sooner you're going to not be relied on for every single client meeting. You're not going to be relied on to do a first appointment if something comes up. You're going to have a lot more freedom, and you're going to have more time to do more marketing and focus more on the business. So there's a lot of positives in doing it. So don't let procrastination get in the way, and I would execute on doing that if you're in a position where you're still carrying the weight of the whole show.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Simon Bowen, and there's a great episode I did with him, and it's kind of the futures model that you're talking about. So
Yeah,
if you're listening or watching and you aren't familiar, just type in Simon Bowen futures model. In fact, I think that episode we clipped it out. It's like a little 10-minute conversation, but the concept for those that aren't familiar, it's you're either, and if you're watching on video, I'm talking with my hands here. So it's kind of like, here's today, it's the present, here's the future. And that can be 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. And what tends to happen, and I've seen this a lot from a coaching perspective, it's the old quote is insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? And so here's this model. I'm burned out. It's all on me. I'm the sales guy. I'm the marketing guy. I'm the paperwork guy. And the longer you wait, the further, the more red line behaviors you have, and you just start to burn out, get exhausted. And obviously, no entrepreneur built their business. It's not like, hey, I want to form a business and just be burnt out the rest of my life, right? And to your point, you have to change behaviors. And when you go from a me, which is where you were when we
yep,
met you, to a we and team, now it's not all about you. Now you have to develop different characteristics, leadership, for
yeah.
example, right?
That's
And
good.
back to the
That's going
green
to be one of
line.
the
Yeah.
that'll be the hardest part of doing it.
Hmm.
Is you're so used to doing it yourself that you don't think that anybody else can,
Yeah.
and you have to check your ego at the door, and trust it. And there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be oversights. You have to obviously identify them, and try to continue to make sure that they don't happen again. But the hardest thing about it was, like, Drew started doing the lion's share of the annual reviews.
Hmm.
So, I would be in the office knowing that I've got clients getting an annual review,
Hmm.
and I almost, I felt like weird. It
Hmm.
was when it was first going on, but now I'm at a point where I'm happy
It's
because,
refreshing.
they're
Yeah.
they're still super happy. He's spending lots of time with them, getting to know them, updating the plan, uncovering opportunities, new assets, etc. He's doing all of that. Um, and I'm focusing on, doing more marketing or something else. So it's awesome. It really is that, there's plenty. If you're by yourself, you got all kinds of stresses and struggles. If you got a team, you're going to have all kinds of stresses and struggles. It's just the nature of the business. But they're different stresses and struggles. And you got to appreciate them for what they are, and the fact that as that team continues to mold together, and it continues to grow, it's going to create more opportunities for everybody.
Yeah. You hit a really key point there. Being an entrepreneur, you signed up to be a problem solver, right? So if you're a solo entrepreneur, it's all on your shoulders. There's problems that you have to fix on the daily. And a lot of those is there's only so much of me to go around. Like, I don't have enough hours in the day. Okay, well, now build a team. You still have problems to solve. It might be, wow, I've got to lead this small group of people that's butting heads, the storming phase you mentioned earlier. But now I've got to step in like the team captain and say, hey guys, we're all here for the same reason. Let's work through this. Looks like we got to tighten the system up, whatever. So at the end of the day, you're still solving problems. But the difference is, if you solve that second problem and you do it well, first outcome, your clients are served at a higher level. Like, think about when you were selling relationship advisor, service advisor, planning advisor, wearing 3 hats. There is no way you can be the world's best of any of those 3 things if you're doing all 3, right? Dan Sullivan says, what if procrastination were a form of wisdom? And what I see all the time from advisors, like, well, only I build the best plans. Then I'm like, well, why is a stack of 5 plans sitting on your desk right now that you haven't gotten to? Because you're doing everything. So are you the world's best planner when you can't even get to them? You know what I mean? And so how much of that was it like once you kind of gave yourself permission to let go and it's like raising a kid, they're going to fall and skin their knees a couple times, but that's the only way they're going to learn how to walk. Right. So did you have to develop that muscle? Like if you were like, man, going back, if I just told myself this, I would have gotten there a lot quicker. Like, what was the breakthrough for you?
I think I'm still developing that muscle, every day. But really, I think, again, the whole health issue that I went through, it just slingshotted the process of getting there. There was no other option really. And it was just amazing how everybody in the office just stepped up and kept going forward. And, that made me realize, the fact that I was, I'd come in here and there, but I could barely talk. I was in a lot of pain, but, to see them and know that they were doing it was just, a real aha moment or awakening for me.
You reminded me of a story. Sean actually, I think, shared this in his book, The Advisor Transformation, real life story. One of Sean's old friends and old clients just called him out of the blue. This was like the first year of Triad. So I guess 3.5, 4 years ago now. And I think the guy's name was Joe. I don't remember his last name, but basically Joe was another advisor's friend who came down with terminal cancer. And he had a team, but he was still very much the advisor in charge model where everything went through Joe. All the appointments went through him. And it's very common. There's a lot of firms out there, even today, where one firm is built on one founder's personality, right? It's all, everything kind of flows through them.
Yep.
And this guy literally, because he wanted to make sure his wife was taken care of, they literally in 6 months' time got 2 other advisors on the team that had been there the whole time, but just hadn't been empowered. They got them up to speed and almost like passed the reins of running the firm in like record time, 6 months. And Joe passed away. And Sean's story, it's kind of a sad one, honestly, in the book, but he's like, imagine if Joe would have done that 20 years ago. The business he could have been running, the freedom he could have had, the team he could have empowered. And it's like, to wait for like an emergency in your business to do that versus doing it proactively, you're just cutting yourself a really lousy deal, as a founder and as an entrepreneur. So I love that you'd already started the process. So you were actually better prepared when the curveball got thrown at you. Yep. Any other just learnings or thoughts just before we get off that topic from your front?
As far as you had mentioned, only, an advisor that thinks only I create the best plans. Well, if you can create the best plans, then you can help your team learn to create the best plans. And then ultimately, if you have, a couple of different advisors in there that can create the best plans that you showed them how to do, then you're going to have a lot more leverage and a lot more bandwidth to take on more opportunities.
Yeah. The analogy I use a lot, Dylan, I probably overuse it, but it people get it when I use it. That's why I always go back to it. Imagine running a McDonald's as a one-person show. You're taking the orders at the cash register. They're like, I'll take a Big Mac. You now run in the back, make the Big Mac. Then you're like, oh, shoot, I got to go clean the tables. I got to go service, right? Go throw the trash away. People would look at that McDonald's and they'd be like, this is the most inefficient McDonald's I've ever seen. Yep. But yet financial advisors do it all the time. It's the orders, the appointment, making the Big Macs, the planning, building the product, right? Service is what happens after they buy it. but yet so many advisors are running around like a wild person doing it all and wondering why their restaurant's in shambles, And
Right.
so it's
And not
wild.
only the restaurant, but their mind.
Yeah, they can't, and
Eventually,
they can't
eventually
unplug.
they're going to go home and kick the dog and, whatever, just be miserable. So,
Yeah.
there's at the end of the day, there's so much opportunity out there. You know, the majority of financial advisors out there are not doing things the way that we do it.
Hmm.
And, the biggest hurdle I think I get, we often put hurdles in front of ourselves mentally, in this business. And I think one of the biggest hurdles that I've fought with for quite a long time was knowing that any people showing up to seminars, coming to a first appointment, knowing they already have a predetermined profile of whatever a financial advisor is.
Hmm.
And the job is to break that mold and really get them to understand how we are incredibly different.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of, I was talking about this the other day with our PR firm. Our business does a lot of clients a disservice by indoctrinating them almost like a religion. It's like, this is the only way, this product, this investment strategy, whatever it may be.
Right.
And the truth is, from my experience, at least, what most people actually want is just simplicity and clarity. And they're
Right.
like, wait, okay, I've got this anxiety. Do I have enough? Can I retire? Okay, well, what are we solving for?
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's enough money to check off the bucket list trips, to go see the grandkids twice a year. Is that enough? Do you want to see them twice a year? Do you want to see them 4 times a year? It's Covey's 7 habits, start with the end in mind. Now, going back to the spreadsheet and saying, okay, let's see if we can get there.
Right.
Oh, maybe we need to work a couple more years to pull that plan off. Maybe we need to take on a part-time job that's at like a quilting shop because we enjoy quilting, in the first 2-3 years of retirement. There's all kinds of ways to get to these ideal outcomes, but most times people's anxiety, their kind of biases almost get in the way of like helping them accomplish what they want.
But yeah, definitely.
And it's
And
kind
and
of
and and as an advisor, you can put yourself in a mindset, because I've done it, many times in my career where they're thinking that,
mm,
and sometimes that'll eat away at you. So now you have to go into the meeting, maybe knowing they're going to think it, but not, but calling out, most advisors don't do this, and B, giving them such an experience that they've never had before, that makes them come back.
hmm Okay. Clock is ticking, so we're gonna
Yep.
we're gonna do a little pivot here.
Okay.
So in your career,
Yep.
one of the things you have done hundreds of to this point, if not maybe 1,000 plus, is public dinner events.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking about it before we went live. And you've shifted here more recently to a little bit more of a focus on educational based events,
Yep.
oftentimes, I think, without dinners, right?
Yeah.
Um, and give me kind of the what's the same, what's different as far as a dinner event versus an educational event, and then kind of the
Yeah.
why the shift from your side from a marketing perspective.
Um, so I think did my first dinner seminar somewhere in the neighborhood of like maybe 2004,
Mm.
somewhere in that neighborhood. And I did them relentlessly for 20 years. And for whatever reason, in recent years, they weren't as effective. I mean, back in the day, for every dollar you spent, you made five.
Hmm.
And whatever. We just wanted to try something new, and I think maybe I just wanted to experiment with the educational seminars. I knew others were having success with it. So we started doing the educational events just about 2 years ago. And, so the one thing that I realized if you compare dinner seminars to educational events is the attendance is going to go down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really going to get, an average attendance at a educational event as large as an average attendance at a dinner event. But, the people that do attend, are showing up for the information. They're and B, um, what I found is that the case sizes for the people that come in, to take advantage of the first appointment strategy session. I found the case sizes were uh, higher,
Mm-hmm.
and that they were more in the mindset um, of looking for opportunities to improve their plan. So it ended up being a blessing in disguise. Maybe you get a few less appointments per event, but you're making it up on the size of the cases. So you're not seeing as many people. You're not spending that much time. You're focusing on really good opportunities for those that do come in for the most part. And it's really worked very well for us. We do them in the mornings at around 10 o'clock, and
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while we do them at night at 6 o'clock. So we kind of mix it up a little bit. I found that, we do retirement income planning, we do social security, we do taxes and retirement. And taxes and retirement, it seems to be the one that draws the most and gets the most response.
Mm-hmm.
But I think anything works really. But for me, uh, my mind is better in an educational event than a dinner seminar,
Mm-hmm.
because you're there more to deliver information and help people better understand, the topic. Um, and at a dinner seminar, you're going to be perceived more, I think, as selling something.
Yeah.
So I think there's a different outlook for the attendees and a different outlook for me as the presenter.
I mean, it just makes sense if you think about the psychology behind the attendee. Why
Yep.
are they showing up to a dinner seminar? For the dinner. Let's just be honest. It's not Dylan's the most amazing speaker. I want to come see him, right? The dinner is
Right.
kind of the carrot that gets them there. If you think about on the flip side, the educational side, they're seeking knowledge about something that concerns them and they're looking to educate themselves. So it just makes sense. They're maybe showing up with a little more intention, seeking help. Um, and I think the other thing that's really important when I look at across all the Triad member firms that are having success with education, you have to check the box on around education. It's like, hey, here are the strategies we often see retirees struggle with. Obviously, I know
Right.
in Massachusetts, you're very blessed with very generous taxes,
Oh yeah.
as in they take a lot. And so obviously it makes sense. Retirees, especially ones that have been done well for themselves, that is going to be a big concern. So if you can speak to, here's a strategy or two we've seen some of our clients take advantage of. If you need help there too, come in. It's almost like a natural next step versus I've got to sell you into an appointment and convince you to come and see me. So is that kind of why
Yeah.
you vibe with them a little bit more?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
For me, I feel, for whatever reason, I just feel more comfortable doing the education events
Yeah.
over the dinner seminars. And there's no wrong or right.
Yeah.
I did dinner seminars for a long, long time. And you're saving the money on meals, but at the end of the day, I don't know if that's enough of a reason. But yeah, they work well.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, we've got a lot of Triad members that do both, right? So at
Right.
the end of the day, it's how much volume do you need on the calendar? And the analogy we make a lot, it's almost like a slot machine. Like
Yeah.
if I put money in one slot machine, I put in $1 and I pull the handle and on average it pays out 3 and I'm helping people. Cool. Well, what's this slot machine do? Oh, I put in $1 here, it pays out 5. Simple math will tell you maybe I put more dollars in the 5 to 1 than the 3 to 1.
Right.
And then what is the frequency, right?
Yeah. And
And yeah, go ahead.
one thing I'll add, Brad, is another thing about educational events and dinner seminars is there are a lot of people out there that get a dinner or seminar invitation every night.
Hmm.
Every day in the mail one comes in, right? And so they're seeing it, they're thinking about it. There's a whole class of people out there that just would never attend one,
Yep.
but they want the information. So, if you drop in the educational event seminars coming in where it's at a library or whatever, those people that for whatever reason never wanted information on the topic, but for whatever reason didn't want to go to a dinner seminar, you're almost marketing to a different type of person.
Yeah.
So really everybody should probably consider doing both, because you're going to probably see different people at the education events than you would at the dinner seminar.
Hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like one of the things that, well, COVID's a prime example. If you rely on one marketing funnel for your entire business, a curveball can really blow the thing up, and obviously
Yeah.
it did it for a lot of us during COVID because just public events were not an option. But if you diversify your marketing strategy, it's obviously a lot more bulletproof if
Yep.
we do get some random curveballs along the way. So we've always been a champion of that at Triad.
Yeah.
I see our time kind of ticking away here. We haven't got much into the do life side. So I want to carve out a little time, because if there's one guy I know that knows how to do life, it's you. Um, you like to have, here's
I
what's fun,
try.
Dylan. You do well. You check that box well. And I think what's cool is you like to have fun. Like back to, it's funny how the theme of what you're creating for your retiree clients, it's like, let's not die with regrets. Let's not look back and say, I
Yeah.
wish I would have. And I think you've been a good example of that. Like that's true to your core, who you are. Um, Fun real life story. We're on Broadway. We go down the street. It's you, me, my co-founder, Sean. And this is well over a decade ago. And, Broadway's fun. It was very different back then. It's changed in the last 10 years, but we kind of go into this little hole in the wall, and it wasn't a country honk and tonk. It was a little bit more alternative rock.
Yeah. I
And
think Gavin DeGraw owned it.
Gavin DeGraw, is he
Is it
lead singer
Gavin
of Bush?
DeGraw? No, that's not him. I think his name is Gavin DeGraw, but he was a famous musician, and he owned that
Yeah.
bar, I guess.
Okay. So we go in there, a small crowd, but they're getting after it on stage. And the next thing I know, Sean has bribed the guy on stage $100 for you to hop up on stage and belt out your favorite song. And I just remember, and then rumor has it there might be a YouTube video floating around, but we don't worry, we won't
I
put
don't
that
know
in the
about
show
that.
notes. But so what I'll tell you what I fell in love with the guy that was there is you weren't afraid to hop up on stage, grab the mic, do your rendition of, karaoke. And the guy that was there to perform was still up on stage and he was loving it too. I think he was playing the guitar while you sang. And I just have always loved that infectious energy you carry
Yeah.
yourself with. And I know you've got annual snowmobile trips. And so if we just look kind of through the do life lens, because I think it's
Yeah.
really easy in this business, it can consume you. There's always a to do at the end of the day that doesn't get done. So how have you tried to balance like, hey, let's have fun while we live this life. Let's not take ourselves too seriously, with also obviously running a really successful business along the way.
Yeah. Brad, you're breaking up on my end. I don't know if you're hearing me clearly.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, as far as the whole do life thing, I hear things throughout my life, and some things resonate with me. And the live every day like it's your last is one that really stood out to me. And I almost got to a point where I was at a point where I wouldn't think about yesterday or wouldn't think about tomorrow. But I like to have fun. I love people. I really can get I can get along with anybody.
Hmm.
And you know, it's just you know, life's too short to not enjoy what's out there. So that's, you know, that's kind of the mindset there.
Yeah.
And so you know, on that YouTube video that might be out there, the best part of that video, by the way, was your laugh at the end when you said unbelievable. That
It
was
was.
hilarious.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Uh, well, and you know what's funny is I think all of us in this life sometimes we can be guilty of taking ourselves too seriously. It's like, oh, what will other people think, or is this embarrassing, or
Yeah.
whatever. At the end of the day, I don't know. Maybe it's me getting older. At the end of the day, we're all going to die, and it's not going to matter. So,
Yeah.
like,
$100.
why be stiff walking through life? Just treat others as you want to be treated. Enjoy it. Have fun. And I personally believe people like enjoy being around other people that carry themselves that way. It's just fun. It's
Yeah,
more
no,
fun that way.
it is. It's awesome, and it's fun to, you know, uh, just be out there with random people and get to know people and you know, learn about them and you know, laugh with them and whatever. It's just awesome.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I mean, usually I close with the question, what's your definition of do business, do life? But you might have already just given it to us. Do you have any additional thoughts kind of on that topic that you want to share?
Um, you know, I would say that pretty much my whole career, I've been more of a lifestyle advisor, if you will. You know, there was a time in my life where you know, I'd work really hard for the first half of the year, and then when I got to a point where I didn't really need to work anymore, I would basically just disconnect.
Hmm.
And I think, you know, there were benefits and curses to that. But you know, I think, you know, you got to do what's right for you, and you know, give everybody the benefit of the doubt until they prove you wrong, and just, you know, be happy with whatever makes you happy.
Hmm. Well, and what's been really fun for me to watch, man, because I've seen all seasons of your business. I've known you for long enough, and
Yeah,
you've always been a very skilled relationship guy. That's one of the things that makes you really gifted at what you do. But where you had maybe under indexed was building a team and, just high quality, high caliber team members around you. And the beauty of now that I've seen you start to take that journey, now you can actually have both. You can
yeah,
have a lifestyle that you enjoy, a business that's growing where you're not necessarily there and serving your clients at a higher level. And it's kind of like the have your cake and eat it too of
yeah.
life and business. And it's really awesome. And that's one of the things that fires me up, because who wants to be a slave to their business their whole life? You know?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, you know, in the early days, you're basically doing everything, and you know, you're doing seminars at night, you're working all day, you're meeting people after hours because they work, and you know, if you're not careful, your life will pass you by. You know,
Mm,
I've got 3 kids, and fortunately, I was able to, you know, take time to be with them, but there were times when, you know, I'd be working nonstop, morning till night, and you know, missed a lot of things. So
mm.
you got to balance it, and life is much more important than business.
Yeah. Well, I'll end it with this quote. I just heard this the other day. You got to remember your last shirt doesn't have a pocket on it, AKA you can't take it with you.
There's
So
no luggage rack on a hearse.
there you go. So we could probably trade these for a while. We'll just do our little
Yeah,
stand-up routine here. So,
yeah,
well, hey, dude, it's thanks for carving out the time. I
yeah. No,
always,
that's
always
awesome.
enjoy our conversations. What's fun is I never know where they're going to go, but they're always going to be fun wherever they
Yeah, I
do.
appreciate
So,
it.
so thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing the wisdom, Dylan, and looking forward to hanging here in a few
Thank
months.
you. I look forward to it as well.
All right. Till next time.
All right, buddy.
We'll see you.